I never imagined I'd be telling this story, but here I am at 35, trying to make sense of how my marriage fell apart. My wife and I had been together for 8 years, married for 3 of those. She was 29 when everything changed, and most of her 20s were spent building a life with me. We never had kids, which I suppose made things simpler in the end. Our relationship wasn't perfect, but we rarely fought. When issues came up, I always tried to resolve them quickly. My parents taught me to never let the sun set on an argument, and I lived by that rule. The main problem in our marriage was my health condition. I had low energy levels that affected our intimate life. My doctor prescribed medication, but I kept putting it off because I hated taking pills. My wife's energy levels were much higher than mine, and though I tried to explain my situation, it created a distance between us. Everything changed during the pandemic lockdown. I got sick and had to isolate for 6 weeks. My wife moved in with her cousin temporarily, but she'd visit every day after work. She'd leave groceries on the porch and sit in her car while I stood at a distance, and we'd talk. Those short conversations became the highlight of my days. One afternoon, we argued about the electricity bill. She mentioned I was using too much power since I was home all day, and money was tight because I wasn't working. This made me angry because I knew she was spending money on shopping and eating out with friends. I hadn't complained about that because I understood she needed some normalcy while living away from home. But her comment about the bill triggered me, and I responded childishly, saying I'd just turn everything off. I apologized immediately, knowing she was just worried about our finances. But she disappeared for 3 weeks. No visits, no messages, nothing. When I finally tested negative and told her she could come home, she said she was visiting a friend in another state. A week later, she told me she wasn't coming back. She said she didn't love me anymore. It came out of nowhere. She mentioned something about love languages and needing physical touch. I had no idea what she meant by love languages, so I found a book about it and started learning. After reading the book, I asked her to meet for lunch. I explained that I understood her better now, and we could work on our marriage. I asked if she knew my love language, and she looked surprised, caught off guard. I explained that neither of us had been meeting each other's needs, but we could fix things if we wanted to. She refused, saying she had no romantic feelings left for me. During my isolation, she had mentioned that she and Tom, a colleague we both knew for years, had started walking together for exercise. I didn't think anything of it because he was married with kids. Looking back, I should have seen the warning signs. One day, she came to get some things and asked if we could drive around. She told me she was upset because Tom's wife wouldn't let them spend time together anymore. When I asked why, she said his wife suspected they were having an affair. My wife denied it, but then revealed they'd been meeting 5 or 6 days a week since my quarantine started. She'd even bought presents for his kids. Then she said something that hit me hard. He just makes my life so full. When I asked if she saw him as more than a friend, she said that didn't matter. I should have walked away then, but I still wanted to save our marriage. We continued seeing each other occasionally, though I knew deep down she was only spending time with me because she couldn't see Tom anymore. Then Tom's wife found me online and called me. She had evidence of their affair, a recording from his truck that caught them together. She told me they were trying to fix their marriage through counseling. The last moment of real connection with my wife happened one evening when she was leaving after watching TV together. She said, "I love you like always," and I gave my usual "I love you more" response. This time was different. Our eyes met, and she broke down crying. She hugged me tighter than she had in months. We went for a drive, and she said she wasn't sure leaving me was the right choice anymore. She mentioned marriage counseling, and I felt hopeful. But a week later, she was back to saying it was over for good. I was stuck in limbo, foolishly waiting for her to come home while she waited for Tom to leave his wife. She would call me when she felt lonely, and I'd agree to meet, knowing it wasn't healthy for me. After realizing I needed to take care of myself, I went back to my doctor. They put me on antidepressants and proper medication for my energy levels. My doctor offered to help with the treatments I'd been avoiding, and I finally accepted. Whether it was the medicine or just time passing, I started feeling better, but my marriage was still haunting me. Every plan I'd made for the future included her. Having kids, watching her become a mother, traveling together, growing old side by side. Now I sat alone in our house, unable to picture what came next. I finally told her we needed to stop hanging out. She'd call wanting to meet when she felt alone, and I'd always say yes. But during these meetings, she was just passing time with a friend while I was still trying to connect with my wife. She didn't understand why I wanted to stop. On Christmas, I went to where she was staying to exchange gifts. She still lived with mutual friends we'd known for years, and I wanted to wish them happy holidays too. I got her some collectibles from her favorite TV show, and she gave me shirts and a wallet, something she did every year. While we were exchanging gifts, she looked at a video game on her desk and laughed. She told me it wasn't the copy she bought herself. It was from Tom. She said it so casually, like she was trying to prove something. When she asked if I wanted to go for a drive afterward, I finally said no. She seemed shocked, asking if I was just going to go home and do nothing. I told her I needed to start moving on if we were really done. She just shrugged it off. Most people still didn't know about her affair. They knew we'd separated, but not why. I'd kept quiet about it, partly to protect her reputation and partly because I was dealing with everything alone. My friends and family knew she'd left, but not the full story. Even then, I felt this strange need to shield her from judgment, even though she'd hurt me. I didn't think she was trying to hurt me on purpose. I believe she developed feelings for Tom during my isolation, and things just spiraled from there. But intention didn't matter anymore. What happened had happened. Months passed, and we finally went to file our divorce papers. She didn't want the house or any money, so the process was straightforward. While we waited at the courthouse, she suggested we could still be friends. I told her I couldn't do that, maybe someday, but not now. I pointed out that if Tom left his family for her like she wanted, he wouldn't want her seeing me anyway. She got defensive, saying she'd do what she wanted. I asked her if she'd ignore Tom's feelings the same way she'd ignored mine. She had no answer. Most of our friends were surprised when they heard about the divorce. I made a simple social media post about it, keeping things civil. I thanked her family for accepting me and asked for prayers for both of us. I didn't mention the affair. Her sisters, mother, and best friend knew the truth, and that was enough. Tom's wife gave him an ultimatum. Either quit his job where he worked with my wife or she would leave him. He chose to quit, proving he wasn't planning to leave his family. Yet somehow, my wife still waited for him, convinced he'd choose her eventually. The divorce moved quickly. We stood before a judge who asked if we agreed to the terms. We said yes, and just like that, 8 years together ended in 5 minutes. While we waited for the paperwork, I mentioned how unreal it felt, that I'd thought we'd be together until death. She suggested we could get married again in the future. I told her no. She hadn't wanted to try counseling or fix things the first time. So why would anything be different? Update. 6 months after the divorce, my phone rang. It was my ex-wife, calling for the first time since everything ended. She asked if my parents had used her employee discount at the store to buy groceries. I told her no, they didn't even have a car right now since my sister was borrowing it. She insisted they must have done it because they're the only ones who would buy steaks and sodas. I suggested she check the security cameras to find out who really used her discount. Later, she texted saying she found the culprit. I should have left it there, but her accusing my parents of stealing angered me. I told her it was wrong to make accusations before checking the facts. Her response changed everything. She got defensive and said I needed to get out of my feelings about her leaving me. Then she attacked my father, calling him a drunk. That's when it hit me. All this time, I've been wondering what we could have done differently if counseling would have helped. But in that moment, I saw her clearly. She truly believed she'd done nothing wrong. In her mind, an emotional affair didn't count as cheating. She was allowed to have feelings for another man as long as nothing physical happened. She called me bitter and sad, saying she couldn't spend her life trying to fix me. But that wasn't true. We'd had good times together. I had been happy. She couldn't even apologize for wrongly accusing my parents. Instead, she doubled down and attacked my family. Then she mentioned coming to get her things from the house. Everything was still where she'd left it over a year ago. When I asked her not to bring her new boyfriend, she told me he was across the state furnishing their new home. They'd been dating for a month, and she was planning to quit her job of 9 years to move away with him. For over a year, I'd been stuck in cycles of depression and anger. But this conversation opened my eyes. She was manipulative and couldn't take responsibility for her actions. I started wondering if any of our relationship had been real for her. Looking back at my family history made things harder. When I was 13, my uncle took his life after discovering his wife's affair. I'd witnessed my mother's grief firsthand, and it left a deep mark. I'd promised myself never to cause my family that kind of pain. Still, during my darkest moments after the affair, I had dangerous thoughts about driving into oncoming traffic or off a bridge. These thoughts scared me, but I knew they were just passing thoughts born from pain. I got help, talked to people, and focused on healing. My sister told me something that stuck with me. You have a full and wonderful life waiting ahead of you, a blank canvas. Don't let the emptiness stop you from painting whatever you want. She was right. Life didn't end with my wife's affair, even though it felt that way for a long time. Recently, I heard through a mutual friend that Tom wanted to talk to me. He was struggling with guilt and wanted to compare stories to see if what my ex-wife told him matched reality. I told the friend that while I didn't want Tom to harm himself, I couldn't be his friend again. How could we ever have a normal conversation knowing what he'd done? I'm not completely healed yet. I may never look at love and relationships the same way again, but I'm finally feeling optimistic about my future. The fog is lifting, and I'm starting to see possibilities again. I'm considering opening my own business, maybe a gaming store, or expanding my online selling. For anyone going through something similar, I know it feels impossible now. When someone betrays you like this, it feels like life is over. People will tell you, time heals all wounds, and you won't believe them. But they're right. I'm proof that you can survive this and find hope again. Your life didn't end with their betrayal. It's just taking a different path than you planned. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with friends or family who might enjoy it too. Your support means a lot. And if you have any thoughts, questions, or story ideas, drop them in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next story.